Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. On the podcast, Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. We have a couple things, Landis, we want to cover. Sometimes this podcast can feel a little bit like homework, right? We try to throw out stats and information. Does it feel like that? You feel it. You're laughing. You're like, yes, Professor Doug.
Yeah, but I make everything I do feel like homework. So that's more of a me thing, I think.
What a great ad for this show. Football homework with Philly Billy and French Vanilla. So we're gonna keep it a little looser today because listen, it's around the corner. So this is like our last chance to sort of like hang out before it's like, oh, it's the game. So we're going to start off with the CJ Stroud discussion because I think somewhere on the podcast feed, we should be talking about the fact that Ohio State's quarterback the previous 2 seasons is like setting the NFL on fire. Yep. So we have some good texter responses, some good texter survey answers, and you and I are going to talk about CJ Stroud. Then we're going to do something we've done twice already, which is rank the 22 best Buckeyes. We're going to have a draft. We did it in the preseason. We did it after week 4 and the Notre Dame game, and we're doing it again now. And mostly it's to talk about the evolution of the season. Oh my gosh, this is what we thought about Jordan Hancock back then, and this is what we think of him now. So it's a little bit like homework, but it's more like the fantasy draft, whereas it's only like a $20 league. It's not like we're trying to beat each other in this draft, right?
No, we're trying to give you just a list of the top 22 guys we think. We do the draft to make it more fun, but we're not it's not a competition per se, although it is interesting as we go through. Like we'll say like, oh, well, I had this guy here, you had him here, like our difference of opinion on certain players.
So it's just like it's a reset of the roster, which we kind of wanted to do before, kind of in the middle, and then before it gets real here at the end. And then we'll do what you eating, what you watching, what you thinking. And I do have something a little special for that for everybody. So
can't wait.
I do like we're saying like, okay, we're not there yet, but we're about to get there. The evolution of this Ohio State Michigan game, Landis, and I just want to touch on this to start. It's like a 5.5 point line on the early, on the betting apps that are out there that have it now. I'm a little, I guess it's at Michigan, but I'm a little surprised that's not closer to like 3.5 or 4. We did see Ohio State is no longer ranked number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. Georgia took that over on Tuesday night. Again, that doesn't matter, but I think everybody's thinking this, and I just want to touch on it. Is this could be the biggest Ohio State-Michigan game ever. Again, as we've said, it probably requires Georgia losing to Tennessee this week to make it a 1 versus 2 matchup. But even if it's not 1 versus 2, I covered it in 06, and I thought we'd never see anything like that. But that was 1 versus 2, and then like tragedy happened. Like people were sad. We lost a legend the week of that game. And this is not that. This is cheating and hate. And I think cheating and hate might trump tragedy.
I think cheating and hate definitely trumps tragedy. This game's going to be nasty, like on the field, in the stands, quite possibly in the press box. I don't know.
Oh, you want to get in a fight in the press box?
I don't. No, I don't. I just
because you called out the entire Michigan beat for the way they've handled this whole thing.
Yeah.
You ready to throw down on behalf of journalism? You ready to throw down?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to throw down, I'll throw down. I guess I'm not saying I'm going there looking for a fight.
Don't do that to our audience. People were like, I don't know if it's going to be bigger than 06, and then they heard Landis might get in a fight in the press box. Now they're like, oh
no, I don't hold any personal animosity toward anyone on the Michigan beat. I'm a teddy bear. But there's been like some.
But you did just say the phrase, "If people want to throw down, I'll throw down." That did just come out of your mouth.
Yeah. No, not really. I don't want to say that, but I think there's been enough like back and forth between media that like I don't know could get a little testy in there. I think
so. It is. I mean, it's going to be unprecedented. In a lot of ways. That like when have we had these kind of like we thought the last time we were in Ann Arbor we got third base and we were like I can't believe he said that. It's like man that was nothing. I was sitting in the Jim Harbaugh news conference and he said third base. And I was like, I can't believe he said that. And it's possible that during that game, he was like, oh man, this is so good. We know all their signs because we cheated. And I was like, he said third base. So it's like potentially really, truly next level stuff that I think we're not telling Ohio State fans anything they don't know, but like you're not going to forget this one, anybody, right?
No.
This is it.
No, I said last week, I think on Kings of the North, that the Michigan Penn State game was a game I was most looking forward to this year. That's in the rearview mirror. Now we're looking forward to this one for many, many different reasons.
So we're like, that's gonna launch. I mean, we might not even get to the Minnesota game before we start talking about Ohio State, Michigan in earnest, but it's gonna launch, as it always does, the second the Ohio State Minnesota game is finished. And so we hope everybody's riding with us on the podcast YouTube feed and podcast feed next week, starting with Saturday night, as we get ready for what is just going to be something that is going to be talked about for the next 100 years in this rivalry. All right, let's talk about CJ Stroud, because this is remarkable. And we have a couple topics we want to cover. We want to get into survey results from the texters. We want to get into some of their comments. Are you surprised at what CJ Stroud is doing right now? And what he is doing is, the Texans had not won more than 4 games any of the previous 3 seasons. They're already 5-4 with him, which is the most important thing. He is second in the NFL in passing yards. He is on pace to shatter Andrew Luck's NFL rookie record for passing yards in a season. He is a 15-2 touchdown to interception ratio, which for a rookie quarterback in the NFL is like almost hard to believe, because he's been so spectacular, but like he's not making mistakes either. Like are you, as this has unfolded, Landis, how surprised have you been?
I'm pretty surprised, because like this is rare that this happens with anyone. Like, I thought CJ would be a good NFL quarterback. I thought, a lot of the things that we've discussed about him would translate quite well to the NFL, which, as you've said before, and you've mentioned that conversation you've had with him a few times, because he believed the same thing, but I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. So I've been trying to watch him more. Like, I watched the game against the Bengals this past weekend, and like try to pay attention to like when they're on red zone and stuff, and watch some highlights to like gain a greater appreciation of what he's doing. And it's pretty insane, especially when you consider that the team around him is not particularly good. Like, they're fine, but it's not like he's surrounded by dudes all over the place and like incubating in a system that does this for quarterbacks. Like, he's doing this with a perennial loser that is still rebuilding its roster. So it's kind of scary to think what he might be when they finally put the pieces around him.
Should we instead make this a Noah Brown conversation? Is that a more intriguing former Buckeye conversation? Because he went for like 180 last week when Nico Collins was out, and they're like, I don't know, get Noah Brown. And at least Ohio State fans are like, he made that catch against Oklahoma where he pinned it on the guy's back. But I think everybody else in the NFL is like, what?
Yeah.
You called Noah Brown Jerry Rice.
I did. He looked like him in that game. He was unguardable.
Yeah. So like, what a combination. But I would say I am surprised. I asked the texters this question: are you surprised by CJ Stroud's early NFL success? The choices were basically, yes, I thought he'd be good, but not this quickly, or sort of like, just like generally shocked, or maybe even thinking he's a bust, were 2 other categories, or no, I knew he'd be a great in the NFL. 73% said, yes, I thought he'd be good, but not this quickly. So they are surprised, which I think is where both you and I are. 20% said, no, I knew he'd be great in the NFL. And then 3% did say they maybe thought he'd be a bust. I was not sure what to think of CJ, and in my typical fashion of getting things wrong. Like, my main thing was, don't go to Houston. I thought there were multiple places where he could thrive. I thought Indianapolis with Shane Steichen as a new head coach who was an offensive coordinator could be a place for that. I thought Carolina with Frank Reich as a new head coach who'd been has been an offensive guy, I thought could be that. D'Amico Ryan as a defensive new never before head coach in Houston with, as you mentioned, not many weapons around him, I thought could be a difficult place. And it turns out that there's Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator there. Obviously, I think what actually happened is that CJ was ready to succeed anywhere. And it's not, he's making them good. They're not making him good. He was ready for this. But I did have some concerns, Landis. Again, we don't pretend to intimately know these players, but we're around them a little bit. You get to interview them, you get to talk to them. And I did think that over time with CJ, we had seen him react to outside noise. We had seen him react to criticism. and take that in and absorb that because he's a real person and a real dude. And he did not just let all that slide off his back like some people are able to. And I did not know what that would be like at a rebuilding franchise. If he was going to go there and very reasonably go 2-15, you know, and have people be like, oh, you know, I can't believe we traded a first-round pick to take him and Will Anderson. Why did we do this? We should have taken Anthony Richardson or whatever. And I didn't know how he would react to that because I don't want to say that he just seemed to take that in more than some players do. Right.
Yeah,
and then it turns out it's like, well, he hasn't had to deal with that because he's been awesome from the start. But also, I just think he's more mentally tough and has, you know, ready for this than maybe I imagined from an emotional and mental standpoint.
Well, I think you're right. And I think probably going through some of this at Ohio State helped him with that. Right. I think he probably gained some perspective on what exactly that criticism means at times, and like how much of it you should actually pay attention to, how much you should use it to motivate yourself, how much of it you should totally dismiss immediately. And because I even thought his second year at Ohio State, he was more mature is not the right word, but it's the one that's coming to mind at the moment. He was like better at handling that in year 2 than he was in year 1 at Ohio State, I think. And now he's into a third year of that. It's also a different beast. Like, Ohio State is ridiculous with the attention that's put on you, and even though it's an NFL franchise, he's not under the same scrutiny playing for the Houston Texans. And I don't know, there's probably 4 NFL teams where the scrutiny would rise to that level. It's a handful maybe, and he's not playing at one of them. And I don't know that he would have ended up in any of them given the way the draft shook out last year. So that kind of helped him in that way. But I do think, like, you're right. He always heard the criticism and let us know that he heard the criticism, but I never really thought it affected his play. Like I thought he used it. I thought he used it and channeled that pretty well. And I think he's probably doing that in the NFL now too. Cause I really think like being great matters to CJ, like a tremendous deal. With the way he prepares, the way he studies, the way he works on his craft. He's immensely talented, but he doesn't want people to think that he's just merely relying on that. Like it's a little similar to Marvin Harrison Jr., I think. So I think that's helped him gain some perspective too. It's like he's not, you know, he probably is motivated in some respect to prove to people that he is maybe not what they think he is. But I also think he's more motivated by truly trying to strive to be one of the greatest to ever do this.
So the thing I really want to get to is how this success will affect his Ohio State legacy. Because it's one of those things like Michigan, like Tom Brady didn't tear it up at Michigan. And then, you know, he got to the NFL, became Tom Brady. And I don't know that a lot of Michigan fans spend time like, man, he couldn't even beat out Drew Henson. I don't know what to think of this guy. It's like they just, you know, of course. So CJ, and again, I think I mentioned this before, we had a texter send in like a very good topic suggestion of doing like underrated Buckeyes. And we'll do that in the offseason. Most underrated Buckeyes that we've covered or that fans, texters would want to nominate. And I do think that CJ's on that list somewhere. And I do think in the end, in evaluating his Ohio State legacy, I think he's more of an NFL quarterback than he is a college quarterback. And so again, I've mentioned it a million times when I interviewed him last year. And one of the things that we talked about in that interview that I didn't write, I didn't use yet, it's a topic that has been at the front of my mind for the last 18 months or so, is the idea of teams being able to lose. Like just the 12-team playoffs is going to mean that you can lose and move on, and it doesn't ruin your season, and you bounce back. And he and I had a long talk about that, like the idea of just at a place like Ohio State, like you can't lose. And Ryan Day said it a million times. I think CJ absorbed that from Ryan Day. And Houston lost to Carolina 3 weeks ago. Horrible loss. It's Carolina's only win of the season. And then they bounced back with 2 straight wins that CJ led game-winning drives at the end. Because guess what? Losing to the worst team in the NFL didn't ruin their season. You just lost and you moved on. So I think like that standpoint of, I think it's hard for a lot of Ohio State players, and we've had parents and players talk about that living in a world where you can't lose is a tough place to be, which is why I think the 12-team playoff will be good for everybody's mental health. I think CJ was like an extreme example of that. I think the setup of the NFL is better for him. That kind of thing. Like, go give me a 17-game season where you know, if I'm awesome 13 out of 17 and we have a couple loose ones because everybody does, like we're still on track. But then also his game, and we'll get, it's really what I want to get to more, Landis, is he's an NFL quarterback who played quarterback at Ohio State, and we spent a decent amount of time when he was in Columbus discussing why he wasn't a little more collegiate with his quarterback play, which means running.
Mm-hmm.
And he was never that. And in the NFL, they're not expecting him to be that. Now he does move around and, you know, make throws after escaping the pocket and that kind of thing. But I think he was built to play the NFL style of football more than he was built to play college style of football, even in a world where Ryan Day wants to throw it, where they have an advanced NFL-like passing system. I still think there's almost a modicum of running required of a college quarterback that in the NFL, they don't want you to run because you're worth all that money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he is an extreme example of he's so much more suited to the NFL. How much time did we spend talking about whether CJ Stroud should run more? Was that not the dominant conversation of his time at Ohio State? And now he's in the NFL putting the ball in windows the size of a thimble. And we were like, man, I wish he would have run on 3rd and 6. What are you doing? Didn't we do that?
We did it a lot. Yeah, that was the predominant conversation of his 2 years as a starting quarterback, no doubt. And it's running and it's playmaking, which he did do more of in year 2. Like I think from 2021 to 2022, that was I think a pretty distinct or noticeable difference in his game was extending plays and throwing outside of the pocket. And now you're seeing him do that in the NFL. And I think that was a question that people legitimately had about him and one that he started to answer in his second year as a starter at Ohio State that is now showing up in the NFL, because you do need that skill. You don't need to be, rushing for 1,000 yards a year as an NFL quarterback, although if you can, that's great. But you do need to be able to extend plays, and CJ's doing that and did that at a fairly high level at Ohio State. I think I know you guys on Buckeye talked a lot about like CJ's brain, like his processing, anticipation, that kind of stuff. And I always thought that was apparent when he was at Ohio State, especially when you got to talk to him. But also he's playing at Ohio State. Like guys are wide open a lot at Ohio State because he has really good receivers. So you almost like miss it a little bit when he's playing at Ohio State. And now in the NFL where guys are not wide open and he's still doing all that stuff, he's processing things and throwing with the same anticipation he threw with at Ohio State. It's just that the coverage is tighter and he's still doing it. And it's like it makes it all the more impressive. But I think it's to your point of him kind of always being situated to the NFL game. Like he was making NFL decisions, I think, at times when he was throwing the ball at Ohio State that didn't always show up because, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are very good. And
I certainly don't want to misrepresent this, but like CJ said, he picked Ohio State because he knew it would be difficult and he wanted it to be difficult. And he left his family and he left his home. And he had no connection to Ohio State, but he wanted to go to the place that would prepare him the most for the next thing. And it was not a, I just want to get to the league in 3 years. I don't care about anything. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's that. And sometimes I do think some guys in college have that, and that's fine. Like take them. What are you going to do? Not take great players because they really just want to have it be a training ground for the NFL and they don't want to sing the fight song? It's like, if you don't know the fight song, you can't come here. It's like, okay, fine. I'll go somewhere else and prepare myself for a $500 million NFL career and be an All-American and help your team win, but I won't know the fight song. So it's not about the fight song, but he did know the fight song. So I don't want to say this too far, but like he knew that he was sort of more aimed for the NFL. And then like, again, if you were drawing up, I still think if you were drawing up the perfect Ohio State quarterback for an Ohio State fan, would you not put a little, I love the Buckeyes. Like I'm from Ohio. I grew up an Ohio State fan. My parents, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, my friends, my teacher, my principal, they were Buckeye fans. I have some connection. I think all of the things being equal, fans would still take that, even in a world where they know Ohio State must recruit nationally and get great guys, whether they have connections or not. Yes? No?
Yeah.
You don't care? They do?
No. I think so. And it's maybe a little different now than perhaps it was like 10 years ago, as Ohio State is recruited more nationally, but I still think that's there. I think, yeah, if they were drawing up a quarterback or designing a quarterback in a lab, and all the physical traits were sort of equal, they would want that kid to be from like Pickerington.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like he can't be that, right? So I think again, I don't think that was disqualifying in any way. But wasn't there a thing here or there after a Michigan loss and then a second Michigan loss? Didn't he say like, didn't he have a quote that was like, well, they all matter or whatever? And some people are like, what do you mean?
He said, like, I think after I can't remember which one it was. He said after one of them, like, this loss doesn't define us, which I think rubbed people the wrong way.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not, because guess what? In the NFL, no single loss defines you. It can't. Unless it's in the Super Bowl, right? So, I mean, like that's kind of, he was built for this, but how does it affect how people are going to view him as a Buckeye? Because what you do after your career does affect the prism in which people then view your time at Ohio State. How has CJ's success in the NFL as a rookie affected your view of him? 45%, Bill, said he's great and I always knew it. So that was like I didn't need this or whatever. 34%, he's great and I wish you would have shown more of that at Ohio State. So that's a third. 20%, he's great and maybe I underrated him at Ohio State. So it's like about half, right? Or just like, he was great, I knew it. This doesn't really affect it. He's doing what he did here. A third are like, he's great. And man, I wish we would have gotten this version of CJ in Columbus a little bit more. And then 20. So that's like, they're using this success to say maybe he should have been different at Ohio State. And then 20% are saying, this is saying maybe I underrated him. So now his success is affecting the viewer's perception of him. Right. So that's almost like an opposite thing.
Yeah.
You watch him be good and you think, why didn't he do that here? Or you watch him be good and think, oh, he did do that here and I didn't realize it. That's like 180, actually, opposite. And then again, half the people are like, oh, no, I knew what I was watching the whole time. Isn't that interesting? That that's three pretty distinct groups.
It is, but it feels right if I like go back through the last few years and sort of play back how I felt about the way that CJ was received. I did feel like about half of the fan base was like, this guy's incredible. Yeah. And then the other half was sort of split with like, and no one thought he was bad. It was just like, is he good enough? Is he doing everything he can? Am I missing something here? Like, I'm not surprised that that's how it played out. I'm actually kind of happy that's the way it played out, because you could, in a situation like this, you could have had 70 people say like, oh yeah, I know he's going to be this good, which would be a lie, because that's not the way he was received during his career. Yeah.
So more things about his Ohio State career. How would you rate CJ Stroud's Ohio State career? I did a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is excellent. 1 is disappointing. What would you do? What would your personal Landis rating be? 1 to 10?
Like 8.7.
Okay. What do you think that the texters voted?
9.1.
Oh no, they actually went lower. They were an 8.
Oh.
8.05. I'd probably give him a 9 because, again, it's one of those things. If you'd ever beat Michigan, you can't be a 10.
Yes.
Right. So it's like, I think he is the maximum you can be having never beat Michigan. So whatever in your own mind. Now, I think there are Ohio State fans who would be like, well, the maximum you can be with never beating Michigan is 0.
Yeah, sure.
And if that's how you view it, then that's how you view it. I'm not saying that's wrong. But I think like is he not in statistically wins, great plays, sort of like a guy that you liked? Is he not almost in every other way the max?
Yeah. He definitely, like, I guess like he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. Maybe like, I don't think he wouldn't need to win a Heisman Trophy to be the max though.
Well, it's hard because it's like he didn't win the Heisman Trophy and he didn't win a national title because he didn't beat Michigan.
Yes.
So it's like those are all very tied together. Mm-hmm. What most closely matches your current view of CJ Stroud's Ohio State career? So again, I'm asking you now, like, okay, now that he's doing this, what's your view? 54%, great player, but losses to Michigan, even if they weren't his fault, affect my view. So that's sort of like, right? I think that's a very realistic answer by Ohio State fans. 33%, one of the all-time great Buckeyes, like just flat period. That's it. A third of the people saying all-time great Buckeye, did everything he could. 11%, very good, but he came up short in big games, especially against Michigan. And then a couple other things that basically nobody voted for. So again, there's the idea of losing to Michigan. Like, is he responsible for it or not? Most people are saying It's not because of him, but I still have to hold it against him. So that's half the people say that. 10% of the people say, well, he is actually a little bit responsible. And then like a third of the people are like, he's still great, right?
Yeah.
Again, kind of split, right?
Yeah. I wonder if you would have surveyed our texters, I guess like 2 weeks ago before, because I think a decent amount of people's view on CJ's career at Ohio State has been changed somewhat by the belief that Michigan cheated its way to 2 wins against CJ.
You mean like Ezra? The outcome of the Michigan scandal could totally flip this, but I've been conflicted on Stroud since the Peach Bowl. Yes, it was an absolutely epic performance, but why did that fire and playmaking not come out against Michigan? Also, this may be unfair to CJ, but I felt at times his general demeanor wasn't a help when the team hit adversity, especially in the 2022 Michigan game. This is probably a dumb sports talk radio take, but I always felt like he could have been more defiant instead of downtrodden when things got tough. All that said, I'm loving his success, and I hope that the Michigan cheating scandal extracts some justice for his Buckeye legacy. How good is that text, Landis?
Yeah, that's great. Because I agree. I think I agree with all of it. CJ, he pouted sometimes on the field. To call it what it is, he did pout sometimes when he was on the field. And I could see why a fan might not love that. He plays when he's good, like when he's dialed in, he plays with a lot of juice and like he's dancing and he's happy, but like whatever his emotions were, you knew it. There was no mask that CJ put up even when he was a little ticked off. You knew when he was ticked off, you knew when he was bummed. Which like I almost appreciate on some level. It's like just kind of wear it on your sleeves. But I understand the perspective from a fan too, who like wants to see their quarterback sort of at all times. Defiant is probably the right word, like overcoming whatever that feeling is and channeling something different.
From Evan in Oregon, CJ is the biggest victim in the cheating Michigan scandal, and it's tough to be reminded of that. But his play in the NFL proves his rareness. I think a lot of people, there's simultaneously two things happening that are having a gigantic impact on his Ohio State legacy. One is he's tearing it up, and the other is they might have cheated to beat him. So that is, man, like he's rising up kind of from both angles, because I did try to ask people to go back in time, Landis, thinking back to 2021 and 2022. What did you think of CJ Stroud when he played for Ohio State? I loved him. I thought he was great. 63%. So basically 2/3. I liked him, but I wanted more. 35%. Mm-hmm. And then I thought he was fine, but he fell short of expectations, only 2%. So really it's 2/3, 1/3. Just loved him. And then a third of like, of course he was good, but and again, I think that's what we felt. I actually think you're closer to right in the moment. Like right now, as people reflect back, it's 2/3 I loved him, 1/3 I wanted more. I think in the moment it was more 50-50.
Yeah, which I don't think is wrong, right? Because it's right. I don't even think the Oregon loss is really a part of it. It's all about Michigan, right? It's not making the playoff in 21 because they lost to Michigan, and then it's losing to Michigan in 22, and then seeing him do something totally different from what he had done throughout his entire career in that Peach Bowl against Georgia, and almost like willing a banged up team to a victory over the best team in college football, which is like on one hand, probably one of like the top 10 coolest things you've seen as an Ohio State fan over like the last 20 years. And on the other hand, incredibly frustrating because you wish you would have seen it against Michigan in 21 and 22.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult.
This is from Eric. I love CJ and thought he was awesome, but the only legit huge game he won, the Rose Bowl against Utah, was meaningless. It's hard to believe that's true. And, this is one of those things again. I mean, I think the Penn State win last year where they worked it out all year, and then he and Marvin carved up Joey Porter and won that game kind of single-handedly. But we've talked about that before. Sometimes people, only when you lose do they think of the big wins. But when you compared Georgia to Michigan, are still, those three games are much bigger than that Penn State game, and they didn't win that. This is an interesting one that I want to delve into a little bit more from Keith in Houston. So because we're going to rank CJ against some other Ohio State quarterbacks. I have felt since the end of 2021 that CJ is the prototypical quarterback. At Ohio State, he was in a situation that didn't allow him to reach the level of success as measured by the final record of the season that he was capable of. And so Keith is saying he ranks some Ohio State quarterbacks ahead of CJ because of their success against Michigan. That phrase, the prototypical Ohio State quarterback, I I would have thought yes, right? That's what Ryan Day wants. Again, by the way, when you watch CJ, that release, his ability to, he throws such an incredibly catchable ball.
Mm-hmm.
His release is so quick. It's up at his ear and it's out, and it's always in the right spot. But he is not just like throwing darts. He's not like Josh Allen, where everything's 150 miles per hour. He's like feathering it right on the dude's fingertips. It is remarkable. So I do think he is, in the end, a prototypical NFL quarterback. But the CJ Stroud experience almost has maybe led me down the path, Landis, of I feel like sometimes Ryan Day wants all these throwing attributes, but he actually wants you to be able to run a little bit more than he admits to himself. Yeah. So this is my question. Is CJ Stroud the prototypical Ohio State quarterback?
No, I think he's like the prototypical quarterback.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the Ohio State quarterback.
Like, what is Ryan Day's prototypical Ohio State quarterback? Like CJ with 20% more running ability? Like or just like CJ versus Georgia? That.
I think it's CJ versus Georgia is probably the answer. Yeah.
But getting to that willingness, ability, need to get outside the pocket and create, getting to that earlier in his career?
Yeah, I think so. And also, like, say like, oh, it's got to be CJ. Like, CJ is a rare thrower of the football, so like, I don't want to undermine how good he is at that. I don't. It's quite possible that Ohio State never has a quarterback who can throw the ball as well as CJ Stroud threw the ball again. So like, I don't want to set that as the expectation, but some blend of that kind of ability, even if it's less than what CJ is ultimately able to do as a passer, combined with the playmaking that we saw in the Georgia game. Yeah.
This is from Pat. I was always a huge CJ fan. I thought that Rose Bowl versus Utah was one of the greatest passing performances I've ever seen. His ball placement was extraordinary. Even though he never beat Michigan, I still think he is the best pocket quarterback Ohio State has ever had. He isn't the reason Ohio State lost to Michigan. He played well in both those games. What he did against Georgia was amazing as well. If our defense could have come up with any stops in that game, Ohio State wins. He carved up great defenses. So this is one of those things. I did this on Buckeye Talk, right? We did Mount Buckmore, where we did like the four position people at different position groups, 4 greatest of all time. So let's try to compare him now, because this is it's like, what matters to you? So I asked the texters to rank the quarterbacks since Braxton Miller. So Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, Cardale Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. Those 6 quarterbacks. Rank these Ohio State quarterbacks based on their careers as Buckeyes, however you choose to evaluate success at Ohio State. Who do you think got ranked number 1? And this is one of those where the texters can slide people up and down and make their own list of 6.
JT.
JT was 3rd.
Okay. I didn't know if the record against Michigan might push him to the top.
Yeah. It's a very complicated evaluation because there's contradictory things that you're trying to meld together here.
Okay. So if JT was 3rd, then was CJ 1?
CJ was 2. Justin Fields was 1.
Okay.
So this was one of those, I know I certainly had a lot of conversations about who would you rather have, right? Would you rather have CJ Stroud or Justin Fields at Ohio State? Would you rather have CJ Stroud or Justin Fields as an NFL prospect, right? I mean, I think the NFL answer is clear at this point. Who would you rather have at Ohio State?
I would pick Justin Fields.
Why would you still take Justin Fields over CJ?
Because he's a good enough thrower with dynamic athleticism, and I think more of a willingness to put it on the line when it needed to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Who would you rather have as an NFL prospect?
CJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is difficult, right? We're changing the context and we're changing the answer. And I don't think that's wrong. Justin, rank these Ohio State quarterbacks based on their careers as Buckeyes. Justin Fields 1, CJ 2, JT Barrett 3, Dwayne Haskins 4, Braxton Miller 5, Cardale Jones 6. Who do you think had the better Ohio State career? Justin or CJ? Like, because so you would take, if you're trying to win at Ohio State, you'd take Justin. If you're trying to win in the NFL, you'd take CJ. But with what actually happened when we're making the list of the greatest Buckeye quarterbacks of all time, how would you compare CJ to Justin?
I would say Justin had a better career. Like statistically, they're going to be different because they're different players, but Justin's stats were incredible. He won a Big Ten championship. He won a playoff game. He beat Michigan in the only chance he had to play them, and did so like in kind of a heroic fashion, I suppose, coming back from an injury and then throwing a touchdown pass in that game. So I think it's Justin.
Yeah. It's hard because Justin didn't have to play Aiden Hutchinson. But actually, maybe like Justin would have fared a little bit better against Aiden Hutchinson because he could have escaped the pocket. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to answer it here because we're just doing this as a segment on one podcast, and we can do a week of this in the off season. It's just, it's interesting to me that when you think about like the greatest, like the guy, like Michigan killers, right?
Yeah.
Michigan killers. JT Barrett, Troy Smith. JT Barrett never threw a pass in the NFL. Troy Smith, limited NFL career, right? Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, now first round picks, elevating, right? The perception of Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL, but, you know, especially CJ didn't do what JT Barrett did. But by the end, JT Barrett, Michigan killer, people were ready to be done with him too. Like the fan base was definitely like, they were like, we've seen enough of this. Let's get to Dwayne, including me. So
yeah, and also like his last win against Michigan is a little complicated too because Dwayne finished that game. Yeah,
because Connor Stallion hit him with a camera.
That's right.
So
that actually, we think it was him, right? Now we know all this.
We never found. He couldn't be found. Yeah. Now that we know there was a spy,
he took off his fake mustache and his Scooby-Doo costume.
What if he didn't hit him with a camera? What if he hit him with a vacuum cleaner? And that's the whole thing. Just, why is it? Oh, yeah, I'm vacuuming the side.
Boy, this sideline's really clean. I wonder why. Ow!
We'll get to the bottom of it. This is Rich. I always thought CJ was underrated during his time at Ohio State. Everyone was quick to write him off at first, and we're also quick to point out the Michigan losses, which now are tainted and weren't his fault anyway. He made some throws that I've never seen any Ohio State quarterback make, and is probably the best pure passer in Ohio State history. Love seeing him succeed in the NFL, and love seeing him make Carolina look really dumb for passing on him to pick a 5'8", 160-pound quarterback. So, I mean, again, it's. I thought Bryce Young was going to be good. I'm a little surprised Bryce Young has not been better so far. Nick, I was someone who was kind of glad to see CJ go. I understand that he was a great player, but the Michigan games hurt how I viewed him. However, now that we know Michigan was cheating, I think he deserves his place among the Ohio State greats. He had at least one Heisman stolen from him. A couple more. This is a good one. This is relatable. This is Steven. CJ was always going to be a star, was a massive star at Ohio State, and it's carried over to the NFL. It maddened me to hear the hate. I put $500 on Offensive Player of the Year at plus 130. No, at plus 1,300?
Yeah, that's right. Offensive Rookie of the Year?
No, they say Offensive Player of the Year, but no, it wouldn't have been $500 on MVP at plus 4,000. Okay. Anyway, also I'm an idiot. So anyway, this person is betting their life savings on CJ, and so Steven can come back and maybe like I don't know, be an investor in the in Kings of the North if he's winning hundreds of thousands of dollars on CJ Stroud's greatness. That's pretty good. Last two. This is Will. I was listening to an NFL podcast, and they said every time you see CJ drop back and throw the ball, you feel like it's always going to be completed and a good play. There's always hope. Reflecting back, watching CJ on TV, you can't see what's downfield, but every time he threw it, my only question was, is it a completed pass or a TD? Unquestioned belief in CJ as a quarterback with his vision, accuracy, and processing. An all-time great Buckeye, period. Did you feel that way when he was throwing it in Columbus?
Yeah. Every time the ball was in the air, I thought something good was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, sorry, I didn't cut you off. Did you read the Athletic story on CJ like last week?
I didn't. I saw the headline. It's about his dad, right? His dad being incarcerated for 35 years.
They did change the headline because they got a little blowback for putting like, while his father's in prison, comma, CJ Stroud's playing well. Now they changed it to stealed by lessons off the field, comma, CJ Stroud is taking the NFL by storm. But the reason I mention it is because like in the middle of the story, they're talking to his teammates, and Tank Dell was talking about CJ, and it says, Dell says Stroud throws with such touch and anticipation. The Texans receivers have learned they don't even have to watch the ball all the way into their hands. It'll be in the right spot with the right velocity, rarely forcing them to adjust. And that's like how I felt every time I threw the ball to Ohio State.
Yeah. Rose Bowl from Pat. Oh no, I already did that one. So that covers everybody then. So I thought by the end he was rare. I thought he was rare, and I thought what he was good at was so rare that it certainly outweighed whatever he didn't do as well. And so we'll end on this. Do you think like Ohio State did not maximize him? Like, is there some role that, okay, they did not win a national championship with him. They did not beat Michigan with him. Is any of that on Ryan Day, Corey Dennis, the offense, the program, the defense? Are we going to look back and be like, what? How did they not? This guy is one of the 10 best NFL quarterbacks of all time, and he never beat Michigan. What did they do wrong?
Yeah, I think I would hear that argument, especially because like he played the game of his life in the Peach Bowl, and Ohio State should have won that game. They stopped scoring like midway through the third quarter. There were some questionable game management decisions in that game in particular. So yeah, like I don't know. It's not that they mismanaged CJ. Like they put him in tremendous positions to succeed, and like he elevated the offense, and like all that was good. It was like the environment around him was probably not as good as it needed to be to make sure that you won a title with, again, a guy who I think might go down as the best passer Ohio State's ever had.
It's crazy, man. How big of a deal is it, do you think, that Ohio State has a quarterback doing this? Because obviously we know for so long Ohio State did not have a guy in the NFL doing this. And then, Dwayne Haskins drafted in the first round, just such a tragedy that Dwayne didn't get a chance to sort of bounce back in the NFL and see what he could be. Justin Fields, it has been a bumpy road, to say the least. There's a lot of discussion around Justin Fields, but he is not a slam dunk franchise quarterback. But are they going to get, Berm's reporting on, the number one quarterback in the next class, looking at Ohio,
like what? He's coming this weekend. Yeah.
Who is it again?
Juju Lewis. Yeah.
How big of a deal is this? Like, is that like he's setting the NFL on fire? I think right now, is CJ Stroud the number one topic of conversation in the NFL?
Yes. Well, maybe not today because Deshaun Watson's out for the year, but before today, yes.
And the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce stuff has died down a little bit.
Yeah, she's in
Argentina.
Argentina.
They go to Argentina together?
She's in Argentina, and I guess he showed up there. They play the Eagles on Monday night, and I'm glad that she won't be there because she's a trader.
Oh, she's in Argentina. Are you glad that Travis Kelce went to Argentina on his off week when he should have been prepping for the Eagles?
I am, yeah.
How crazy is it? And because I think this is like, we know CJ, right? Like Ohio State fans know CJ. Everybody listening to this show knows CJ Stroud. And then you hear people in the NFL being like, "Oh, CJ Stroud," and it's like, I think it's because he was a Heisman finalist twice, but I don't think he was super famous. Not super famous to the average college football fan. The way I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is significantly more famous than CJ Stroud was. Yes,
I think that's right. I guess the one thing I would say with I guess not fans in general, but CJ pretty immediately started running in some pretty heavy celebrity circles, like the second he left Ohio State. So like that probably put him on people's radars. Like he was like at dinner with Kim Kardashian. and
what?
Yeah, I think they do. She has like a Prism reform thing, and like he's part of that. But he was like, he goes to like there was like some white party where like Tom Brady was there and like Jay-Z and Beyonce were there and CJ Stroud was there. Yeah. So like he's doing that kind of stuff now, and it happened pretty quickly for him once he left Ohio State. But no, I don't think he was he was among the most famous players in college football when he was here, certainly, but he wasn't like the most popular, I don't think. But he's on a trajectory now where he's like, I think he's going to be like the face of the NFL in 3 years.
Yeah. And I thought it was such a big deal this past Saturday because I know like CJ really, in a lot of ways, thought Joe Burrow was a quarterback he was similar to, that like the way they played, and that it really is about ball placement and accuracy and, you know, moving around enough to make a play. But I think he thought Joe was kind of a brain first quarterback and CJ is a brain first quarterback. And I mean, he talked a lot about Joe, and to go to Cincinnati and beat Joe Burrow was like, oh man, you know, like that was kind of a thing. And I do feel like, is any part of you like the CJ Stroud make up for Joe Burrow? Because there's like a Joe Burrow thing again, right? Where Joe Burrow said, I went to college at Ohio State, but I played football at LSU, which is not wrong. But it's like everything Ohio State fans missed out on with Joe Burrow, it's like CJ Stroud kind of made up for that, except for the national championship and the Heisman. Yeah,
well, it's at least good that now, because the conversation about like, well, Ohio State guys never pan out in the NFL, and then like the one guy who kind of did had to leave Ohio State before he did that. Like that was not great, I guess, for that narrative. So this helps tremendously. Yeah, CJ's doing this.
Remarkable. It's remarkable. So, and then he was back, right? He came back in his bye week and he was hugging everybody and walking around.
Got a good ovation. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, hey, it's CJ Stroud walking around in an Ohio State Letterman jacket. And then it's like, yeah, when he goes back. That was before he led the 2 game-winning drives and before he really rocketed up the charts. Yeah. So
do you think because I think it's merely just like continuing to produce first-round quarterbacks that matters the most, and not necessarily how they play once they get there for Ohio State when it comes to recruiting. But like what do you think this is important? Like CJ's success in the NFL, is it important to Ryan Day's endeavors of recruiting quarterbacks, or does it not matter as long as he's
I think it matters a lot. I think just like the coolness part of it, the fact that like Ohio State's part of an NFL conversation, even though like to your point, it's like, hey, you can say we've had this many first round quarterbacks and here's the total amount of the contracts that Ohio State players are earning in the NFL and that kind of thing. But like, dang, CJ, I think is as a next level kind of thing. And when you think about like, certainly Nick Bosa is doing that, you know, like Ezekiel Elliott's run is kind of coming to an end. Michael Thomas is certainly his run as an elite NFL player is coming to an end. I mean, I'm going to leave people out. Denzel Ward is amazing right now, but CJ is the face of Ohio State in the NFL right now, probably with Nick Bosa. Like, is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Cause it goes in waves, right? And that 2014, it's crazy. The longevity the players don't have in the NFL, but that 2014-15 group is cycling out a little bit, or like it just feels like they're on the tail end of their careers. So like Nick Bosa is a few years removed from that, so he's still there. But then it's like, yeah, the next wave is kind of led by CJ and I guess like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave.
Yeah, and like, you know, Chase Young and Jeff Okudah didn't really hit it big in the NFL, and so like, yeah, I do think it's a pretty huge deal for Ohio State. I do think it's that.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll continue to evaluate it because again, it's one of those things that you've done what you're going to do at your place, but your legacy, your past is always affected by your future, and so he will color the way he is viewed at Ohio State with the way he plays in the NFL. And I think, you know, if he wins a Super Bowl or if he's some version of Tom Brady, then I think people are going to be like, oh, CJ Stroud, man, it's greatest Buckeye quarterback of all time. And that won't be wrong.
Yeah.
That won't be wrong because it'll be like, I don't know. I think it's JT Barrett. People be like, what?
Who?
Are you serious? But in the moment. So anyway, all right, when we come back, we've got to get back on the field with this team right now. It'll be our third time. The 22 best Buckeyes drafted next on Kings of Columbus. All right, back on the field with this Ohio State team, Bill. Somebody commented, so I like restarted my Facebook page because we started a KOTN Facebook page. So I was like, I hadn't been on Facebook in years because I think the Russians just hacked me. And then I was mad at Zuckerberg and I was like, I'm out. But now I feel like I should be there for this. And so, there's all these old comments. Like, it's like from years of me not being on Facebook. One of my first sports editors like a year ago was like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, I guess I should call that guy. So, but somebody was mad that I call you Landis. I think it was on Facebook. They commented like, instead of calling you Bill. Are you mad when I call you Landis?
No, I think I have a pretty good split, I think, of people who call me by my first name or my last name. So no, I don't mind it. Yeah, it's normal. Yeah. It's normal for me. Yeah.
I said it's affectionate. It's not like Sergeant Landis. Like I'm
right.
I think
it's only 2 syllables.
Billy all the time.
Yeah, it's only 2 syllables. Like I think like if like calling you Lesmerises, it's a mouthful, right? It's like Doug. Yeah, but like Landis is only 2 syllables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bill,
please call me William.
So we did this. We drafted the 22 best Buckeyes. It's our way. A lot of times, like when we do our rankings on Kings of the North and that kind of thing, you rank things, I rank things, we combine them, we wind up with ties and that kind of thing. We could do that. Hey, what's your top 22? Here's my top 22. We'll combine them and then we'll talk about them. Instead, we just do a live draft. It's the same outcome. We're not trying to beat each other. Your team's better than my team. We're just trying to get a representative list of who the best Ohio State players are right now. And I think it's one of the most interesting things you can do is to track the evolution of your thinking. And it is a little bit to check yourself. You know, it's a little bit of a cold take situation. I think you have to remind yourself when you're wrong, occasionally when you're right. But to tell people, hey, man, like this is where we were, because I don't know that we ever do this, Bill, Landis, William. Philly. I don't know that we ever do it and that people watching are like, well, that's ridiculous. They said this guy's the 7th best player on the team, and everybody knows he's the 16th best player on the team. Yeah. That is not what we're trying to be, represent a consensus of what Ohio State fans think.
We are, but this one has a little bit of a twist on it. You want to explain?
No, you explain it. Here? Now I'm nervous. What's the twist?
Well, just like the Lathan Ransom paradox.
So what we're trying to do is balance past and future. We are trying to evaluate who the best Ohio State players have been so far, and like availability is part of that. I think of it as like contribution to the team so far. And so if you've been hurt and you've been out, I certainly will take the fact that Emeka Egbuka has missed games, Denzel Burke has missed games, Cade Stover has missed games. I'll take that into account with my evaluation. I'm not saying they're not good players, but I'm saying like, okay, we're just saying who's contributed the most, but also we're looking ahead at the same time. Who's going to continue to contribute the most? So Emeka had a bad patch here since the Notre Dame game where he wasn't on the field, but you know, you kind of think he's going to be a primary part of them trying to beat Michigan, but Lathan Ransom will not be. Lathan Ransom, Ryan Day made it pretty clear, is out for the rest of the regular season, but he's been very valuable so far, and he is 6th on the team in defensive snaps, even though he missed the last 2 games. So we're trying to balance all of that. So if Lathan Ransom was 100% healthy, I'm sure he would go higher than he's going to go.
Yes.
But we're also not going to ignore him because he's not going to be back until the playoff, if at all, because I don't think that's fair either. So we're just trying to balance that one way or another, right? We're not saying we're right, but we're trying to take, I think, both into account equally, what has happened, what we expect will happen.
Yes, which is a good base to lay when people are like, why is Lathan Ransom 15th and not, 5th?
Right. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to start it. We're going to do 22 because there's 22 starters. We're going to start with William Bartholomew Landis the 6th. Is that right? I don't know.
Close. You're not far off. I will choose Marvin Harrison Jr.
I would like to make a note because you were like, hey, it doesn't matter who goes first. They're just going to pick Marvin. You went first last time and you picked Denzel Burke.
After the Notre Dame game, I think that makes sense. No? Marvin had a little bit of a slower start to the season.
I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm just saying it's not as, it has not always been as cut and dry as we are saying it is now. Right? Yes, which does that feel weird? That there was a point where Marvin Harrison Jr. was not the first pick in this draft.
Yeah, it does feel weird. The beginning of the season was strange, and it's been great since the Notre Dame game. Basically, I think I don't know that he had 100 yards in any of those 4 straight games. Maybe he had 1, and now he's had 5 since then, or 6 since then. I think he has 7 for the year, which is tied for the second most in the country, and a boatload of touchdowns. So like he's been Mar for the last month and a half, but he was not that the last time we did this exercise. So,
okay. So now I have the second pick, and I did not do my complete list beforehand. I'm just going to let it fly a little bit.
Because the last times we've done this, I didn't do the list, and I felt like I did. Yeah, this time I did. Yeah.
I don't know who to take. Is there some dispute in your mind at who should be number 2?
Yeah, I think you could probably take 4 or 5 guys at number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do this based on who Ohio State would least want to lose for the Michigan game and beyond. So this brings in some of the evaluation is like how good your backups are. And for instance, like I didn't think they wanted to lose Denzel Burke, and like they kind of survived without Denzel Burke. That's not me saying Denzel Burke's not an outstanding player, but he has missed some time, and I'm going to factor it in slightly into this evaluation because they survived okay. So I'll take JT Tuimoloau.
Okay. Does
that feel possibly right to you?
Yeah, I had him 3rd. So
okay,
that feels right to me. Yeah.
All right. So who do you want to take 3rd then?
Now you have me thinking. I'm gonna take Tyleik Williams 3rd.
Okay.
I had him 2nd. It's hard. Tyleik's difficult because a lot of the stuff that he does so well, I think maybe doesn't get noticed unless you're keyed in on watching defensive tackles, fill their gap properly and take on double teams and do that kind of stuff, which he's done tremendously well and as consistently as he's done in his career. But he also leads the team in tackles for loss. If you look at PFF grades, he's one of the top Power 5 defensive tackles. I think he's like 5th. So he's played really well. He's got 5 pass deflections. Like he's helped this defense in a number of ways and is playing really good football. And I don't know, part of it is too, and I guess it's similar to JT. It's like there's not another Tyleik Williams on the roster. Like there are other defensive tackles that they could dip into for their depth, but I don't think any of them bring what Tyleik brings.
So Tyleik Williams was 22nd, was the last guy picked in our preseason draft. He was 3rd last time, and he's 3rd here again. So he's risen up the rankings. JT Tuimoloau was 5th in both of the previous 2, and now he's 2nd. And I was maybe slow to come around on this, but I think I want to reflect what I believe the fan base consensus would be on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily all the way there, but I also maybe realize that I should be. So I'll take Trevion Henderson 4th.
That's who I had 4th.
So he was 9th in the preseason. He was 13th after Notre Dame. And is he a 20 carry a game, 15 game in a season kind of workhorse running back? Probably not. He's had some injury issues. Is he a change your offense when he does play? What he does, nobody else on this roster does. He is that, right?
Yes, he is. Find a way to get him to your biggest games healthy, because in those games he needs to touch the ball 25 times.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes. So I think we're reflecting correctly this, right? I mean, I think most fans, if you said, is Trevion Henderson one of Ohio State's best 5 players, I think would say yes.
Yes. I think there's a growing belief in this offense that is helped in large part by the way that Trevion's played for the last month.
Okay. Who do you have 5th?
I have Jack Sawyer 5th.
Okay. This is quite a rise. Jack Sawyer, 16th in the preseason, 18th after the Notre Dame game, 5th now. Is he the player who's made the biggest jump in the last 6 weeks on his level of play and his contribution to the team?
Yeah, I think so. And Jim Knowles kind of said this when we spoke to him last week. Like, again, it's a guy that I think you really got to watch. He's not going to make the obvious sack in the backfield that gets your attention easily. But if you watch him snap to snap, the way he takes on blocks, the way he defends the run, the way he does actually affect the quarterback, even if he's not hitting him, I think all that has gotten better incrementally every week that Jack has played. And he's playing his best football right now. So on a defense that has a lot of really good playmakers and guys that are doing their job to make this defense elite, I think Jack has really stepped up.
Okay. I don't disagree with that pick. It's been, it's great. Like, congratulations to Jack Sawyer on becoming the player I think everybody expected him to be when he got here. A lot of it's not his fault. It's been a bit of a circuitous route, but here he is helping Ohio State win games late in year 3 of his career. All right. There's a guy that I kind of want to take now, but I feel like I have to take this other guy ahead of him before I can take the other guy. So I'm going to take the guy who I have to take ahead of him next, and I'll take Denzel Burke. And he was 7th in the preseason. He was 1st last time. This is 6th now And he's a great player, and he missed a couple games.
He's a great player. I had him ninth, which felt low when I did my list, but as the point you made earlier, like they lost him and they were kind of okay. So, and it's not meant to be a ding on Denzel, but when you think about positional depth, I guess, I feel really good about corner now. Like a beginning of the year, we said they're going to lose Denzel Burke, like they're screwed, and now they're not. Like they've had Jermaine Matthews step up, and the other guy who I think you wanted to take step up, and they're pretty good at that spot. So, but Denzel's incredible, and he's going to be important, I think, down the stretch too. So I'm fine with him going here, but I had him a little lower.
And if they had, I mean, I think if they had bad corner play when he was out, he'd be third.
Yeah, he would have stayed.
So I think the fact that they survived a little bit is reflective in the fact that he lasted as long as he did to 6. Who are you taking 7?
I'll take Jordan Hancock.
Okay, that's the guy. I kind of wanted to take Jordan Hancock, but I felt like, well, who's their best corner? Right? I mean, if you said who's their best corner, who would you say? Denzel. Okay, so I felt like Denzel had to go ahead of Jordan, but I'm glad you took Jordan here. Why?
Yeah, because he's a good corner and he's a really good safety. Like he's if I don't know, he's not their best safety, I guess, but I don't know, maybe he is. It's like him and Sonny Styles. It's an interesting conversation. Jordan Hancock, I think, is, I said this to Austin in the press box during the Michigan State game, I think he is a better version of what Ohio State got from Shaun Wade out of that spot in 2019. And I thought Shaun Wade was awesome that year. Jordan Hancock was his ability to cover guys in the slot and really like play physically, like downhill against the run. I knew he was a player that liked to mix it up and like was not afraid to tackle, but he is at another level with that stuff than I imagined he would be or could be given his size. So he's and injury's part of it. Like injury has put him into some bigger spots, but I think he's kind of answered the bell every time he's been put there, and he has quickly risen up the board as one of their more important defensive players.
Yeah, the fact that he can handle like the run stopping responsibilities of that position as well as being a cover guy in the slot elevates him. So he was 12th in the preseason, 14th last time, and now he's 7th. So that is a pretty nice rise for Jordan Hancock. We're in like another cluster of guys, I feel like, but I think this will be an interesting conversation between two guys, but I'll take Cade Stover 8th.
Yep.
He was 13th in the preseason, 7th last time, and I think when he's not there, they miss him.
Yeah, we were having a conversation when Cade, right before he like missed a game, and like when Brock Bowers went out, like, does Cade actually have a shot to win the Mackey Award? Because statistically, he stacks up well against other tight ends. He's still kind of there. He's like 5th, I think, in the country in tight end receiving yards. He's their second leading receiver this year, which no one would have expected that. So they do miss him when he's not there. I think he's a nice security blanket over the middle of the field for Kyle McCord, but then also you can flip him a 4-yard pass that he'll turn into a 19-yard game because he's gotten much better in the open field. 34
catches, 508 yards. I was torn between him and another guy, but I'm curious where this guy will go. So who are you taking 9?
I'll just keep following my list here. I'll take Sonny Styles.
Okay. Gradual progression for Sonny. 11th in the preseason, 10th after week 4, 9th now.
Yeah, so I had this more or less falls on my board. I had Jordan Hancock 6th. I actually had Sonny 7th and Cade Stover 8th. So I had Sonny above Cade Stover. I don't know that I realized this. Like Sonny's got like the best run defense grade in the Power 5. I'm a little, as we project forward, I'm a little like not nervous. Nervous is not the right word, but wondering if he's going to continue to be used in the right ways because he's playing that position for Lathan Ransom, and like sometimes it requires you to not be down in the box. And I just think Sonny's so good there; it's where he's most impactful, and I want to have him there more often than not. And just like the nature of the position might take him out of that sometimes. But when he's down in the box as a run defender or covering a tight end, like I think he is as good as anyone you could probably ask for among the contenders with his size and range and athleticism.
For number 10, I'm going to go with a guy that would be definitely higher on this list if he was healthy, and that's Emeka Egbuka. And Emeka Egbuka was number 2 in the preseason. He was number 4 after the Notre Dame game when he like helped save that game. But it has been a little, I don't know, odd. He's been out and they've just been throwing to Marv, and that's worked. So again, it's not I don't know that anyone thought the offense would fall apart if Emeka Egbuka got hurt, but I think they've survived maybe a little bit better than we expected by having the best receiver in college football. So this was the guy again. I was conflicted on Cade Stover and Emeka on my last pick, but I still think he's a top 10 player for them. So I think I have to take him here at 10.
Yeah, especially if you factor in the future and what do you think what he could be / needs to be for their offense. I think that's fair. I had him lower. I had him actually 13th, which now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably too low. Because I think you're right. I think for them to do what they want to do, I think he needs to be a top 10 player for them for sure.
All right, 11 to you.
Josh Proctor.
Okay, he was also 11 last time after being unranked in the preseason.
Just playing really well, man. He missed some time, and I guess it's a similar thing to Denzel Burke. Like they missed Josh Proctor, and maybe it wasn't all that noticeable when he wasn't out there. Like they filled in for him well. But I also think there's enough uncertainty there with like having to play a true freshman basically in his place if you don't have him, combined with how well he's played, that makes him a borderline top 10 player for this team right now.
I think that's right. Should we take the quarterback now? Are we ready to have the quarterback?
I had him next.
You had him like right in this range?
Well, I had on my list, I had Proctor 10th and McCord 11th.
Okay, so I'll take Kyle McCord here at 12. 17 in the preseason, 8th after Notre Dame. It has been an interesting path, and this is something that we'll get into as we start digging in more on the Ohio State-Michigan game. But I think it's possible that the two most important things for Ohio State now that they want to like get straight before the Michigan game are health, because like I think they're okay, but they've had some primary dudes kind of in and out the past couple of weeks, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think ideally they certainly want to get back to a point where Emeka Egbuka is going to be himself. Josh Proctor is going to be out there. Tommy Eichenberg is going to be out there. I think they've dealt with the fact that Lathan Ransom's not going to be, but they want to get healthy. And then I think they want to make sure that Kyle McCord is feeling confident. And I think health and Kyle McCord's confidence are like the two most important things heading towards the last Saturday in November.
Yeah, which makes the Minnesota game incredibly interesting. I think it's the most interesting thing, I think, in the Minnesota game is, can Kyle McCord look the way he looked against Michigan State? Even if you say to yourself, well, like Michigan State's defense is very good and Minnesota's defense is very good, what does it actually mean when you do play a good defense against Michigan? The answer to that question could be nothing, but I don't think it is. I think the confidence is incredibly important. And he looked the most confident he's looked all year against Michigan State, and you want to see it continue this week against Minnesota.
Because this was strange that like the last time he was ascending with confidence after what he did on the final drive against Notre Dame, then he didn't retain that, right? Then he came out and had some rough moments for a couple weeks. And so this is now, I think, his second peak, right? I mean, Notre Dame's a freaking peak, dude.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But then it came back down from there. It didn't bottom out, but it came back down. And now to build back up again, maintaining that level of confidence and efficiency and accuracy and just being locked in and making plays. And again, we talked about it. I think, he made a lot of big time throws. He made more big time throws against Michigan State than he had in any game. And he made zero turnover worthy plays, which he had not done. So it's the best of the best and the best of not having any of the worst. So that's, keep your eye on that. Yeah. What are you watching Saturday? Watching that.
Yes.
Who's next?
So I'm just going to stay true to my list. I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to pick an offensive lineman.
Oh.
It's Matthew Jones.
He's their best offensive lineman?
I think he is their best offensive lineman.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's playing I tend to fall back on PFF stuff the most for offensive linemen just because we don't have data other than your eyeballs. But I would hope that your eyes tell you that Matthew Jones has been playing well of late. And also he's playing like grades wise on PFF, like one of the better interior offensive linemen in the Power 5. I should say. I think he's like 8th, among Power 5 offense or interior offensive linemen. Or maybe just guards specifically. I think it might have just been guards. But he's playing well. He's playing kind of like he played last year. I think he's actually a little bit better in the run game, like lately, than maybe he was on average last year. Okay. And I think they've gotten to some stuff like with him as a puller that I think has really helped take the offensive line play or the running game, to another level.
He was 19th in the preseason. He was 17th after Notre Dame. He's 13th now, and it's the first time he's the number 1 offensive lineman in our draft.
Do we want to have a 30-second center conversation?
Kyle McCord's confidence, healthy, possibly changing their starting center. So, yeah, go ahead. Three biggest things before Michigan.
Yeah, so like we've talked about this on a few shows already. I won't belabor the point, but I do think there's a non-zero chance, I think, that they are considering the idea of maybe Matthew Jones moving to center to put the offensive line in the best position it needs to be to perform well against Michigan. They gave him the snaps against Michigan State. I think it was 10, mostly with the starting offensive line. Enoch Famahi was the right guard when they did that, but the rest of the guys out there were the normal starters, and Carson Hinsman was on the sideline. So, and I thought Ryan Day's we evaluate everything was at least somewhat telling that it's not like an idea that he slammed the door on. So we'll see. I'm not sitting here predicting that Matthew Jones is going to be the starting center for Michigan, but I guess I'm saying I believe that it's possible.
The entire season, the starting offensive line has played together the whole time. When they've come out as a group. Through 10 games, Donovan Jackson, Josh Fryer, Josh Simmons, and Matthew Jones have played 650 snaps. Carson Hinsman has played 640 because for some reason, last game, they decided to take 10 snaps to do something different that they had not done the whole year, and they did not do with anybody else. So they were checking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not nothing. It's not, it's at least a check.
Yeah.
So I think you could do an entire podcast about centers.
I have many opinions on this matter and how we have gotten to this point.
If this team, I don't know, I certainly wouldn't have thought this in the preseason. If this team tomorrow could get back Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, or Luke Whippler, one of the three, who would you want them to get back?
Who would I want them to get back?
Yeah.
Paris Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not that far? It's not.
It's
okay.
It's Paris Johnson.
Josh Simmons, that's pretty good Paris. No, it's okay. I didn't know how far we had gone in the center conversation.
Yeah.
Not quite that far.
Not quite there.
14th, I'll take Davison Igbinosun.
Okay.
Who was unranked in the preseason, was 12th last time. I think has played very well. He leads the defense in snaps. He's physical. He's reliable. He's not scared. He kind of does his thing, and he might be their third best corner. But if he's your third best corner, that's pretty good.
So, yeah, and you trust him. No, I get like knock on wood, I suppose. You trust him to make the tackle that Cam Brown couldn't make against Michigan last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good physical tackler. All right.
Yeah.
14th to Davison, 15th to you.
So I had Davison 16th on my list behind a pair of linebackers, so I'll go there. I'll take Tommy Eichenberg at the next spot, which I guess is the 15th pick for us.
All right. This is making me feel crazy. 4th in the preseason, 6th after Notre Dame, 15th now. Why? I don't disagree. But why did this unfold this way?
I don't think. Well, he leads the team in tackles. He's got 75 tackles. Like it's not that Tommy's played poorly. I think he's had a couple of rough moments, and I don't think his play has been quite as high level as we thought it would be, based off of how good he played last year or how well he played last year. I think part of that is what he's being asked to do this year is a bit different than what he was being asked to do last year. I think last year they were, as Jim Knowles said, they used him as a heat-seeking missile, and now they're using him a little more for his brain and his understanding of the game and getting guys set up and making sure that like the leverage is right and all those kinds of things, rather than like as a means of attacking an offense. So that's going to cause your like tackle for loss numbers and sack numbers, especially, I think, to take a little bit of a dip, and they have. He's probably as short of a tackler as he has been, but he's also missed enough for me to think like I think there's a tackles you should be making as a guy who's a returning starter. So he's played okay, but I also don't know that there's been a tremendous difference in the linebacker play between Tommy Eichenberg, Cody Simon, and Steel Chambers, which is also why I have Tommy a little lower right now.
So Cody Simon only graded out just above 50 on PFF last week, but Tommy Eichenberg's individual grades are like 61, 56, 53, 74, 58, 42, 69. Like his haven't been as good. Again, I don't think PFF is the number one thing you look at for linebackers, but just comparing him against himself, in 2021, his PFF grade was 64. Last year, it jumped to 87, and now it's back to 63. So the hard thing about this is we did know Tommy Eichenberg as a regular Ohio State player who was not an All-American, right? It's sort of like, why? How is this happening? Like, but, you know, he was the defensive MVP of the Rose Bowl in 2021 in a year when he had like lost his job at part of the, you know, of the time. So, and then he was great. And now I do think it is, it's a lot of it scheme oriented. I don't think he forgot how to play football, but you have to go by production to some degree. So I don't think this is unfair, but 4th to 6th to 15th is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. Yeah. And I think it's, like I said, it's mostly a reflection of who's being asked to do what in this defense this year compared to last year.
Yeah. All right. I'll take Lathan Ransom 16th. He was 8th in the preseason, 9th after Notre Dame. I still think he'd be a borderline top 10 player if he was healthy right now. And even though he's missed some time, he's still up there. He's 6th in defensive snaps overall. And so I think that contribution, considering he hasn't played the last 2 games, graded out pretty highly, and I think is what they want back there. And they will miss him. I don't think they're devastated without him, but I think he still matters. So I think 16th is about right.
Yeah, I had him 17th on my list. I certainly would have had him higher if we knew he was going to play anytime over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not even certain at this point that he's going to play again this season. I thought that was a rather, you know, kind of sober outlook on things from Ryan Day with where this could be going with Lathan Ransom. So we'll see, but he's played well enough to deserve a spot on this list for sure. You took him one spot earlier, I guess, than I would have. I'll go Cody Simon next. Welcome
to the list, Cody Simon. His debut did not make it the first 2 times.
He's like he doesn't start, but he basically plays starter reps now for this defense. I know you said his grade last week wasn't particularly good. I think he's played pretty well for them. Especially there's been a few spots where I think they needed him to play well when Steel Chambers was like trying to get some stuff figured out. They kind of had to take Steel off the field, and they couldn't let their linebacker play suffer. And actually, I think it got a little better in some regard when Cody was out there. I still question, you know, his ability to be on the field and be effective when teams are throwing the ball. But in terms of run defense, I think he sees things well. I think he understands stuff. Is a fairly sure tackler, and pretty solid, I think, for what he's been asked to do for this defense.
I'll take Mike Hall 18th, and this maybe feels low. He was 6th in the preseason, 20th last time, but you know, he's not producing like Tyleik Williams this year, but he's still their number 2 defensive tackle, and he is currently hurt. And Ryan Day did not give an update when asked on Tuesday about Mike Hall's health status, but he's been a good player for them, right?
Yeah, he's second on the team in pressures, I think.
This is too low. I think we let him last too long.
Well, the reason I have him, because I also had him 18th on my list, is because he's hurt, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it was weird. I haven't gone back and like watched to see exactly what happened. Austin and I just saw him walking off the sideline with a trainer. I don't think he ever came back to the sideline, and I don't like when Ryan Day says like we don't have an update on that guy, because that usually means a longer term issue. I think if they had confidence or hope that Mike Hall was going to be able to play this week, I think we would have picked up on that, and that didn't seem to be the case. So I took that into account when putting him where I did.
Okay. 19th to you.
Ty Hamilton.
Okay.
Who I also had 19th on my list. Like incredibly underrated player, I think. Playing better than he was earlier in the year. Just does a whole lot of dirty work for the defense and on the defensive line. I think he's fine doing it. I appreciate guys who kind of go about their business that way, but he's a solid Power 5 defensive tackle who performs important tasks for this defense, even if he's not filling up a stat sheet.
and did not make either of our previous lists.
Hmm.
So checking in at 19 for Ty Hamilton is pretty good. We're getting down to it now.
Yep.
I feel like there's an area that I should leave to you. So I will take Steel Chambers at 20, who plays a lot, right? And I don't want to like be dismissive of like all he does is play a lot, but he's 5th on the team in snaps, and he is a starting linebacker, and he's solid. And last time we did this, he had been coming off like not a great Notre Dame game. He was 10th in the preseason, was 16th after the Notre Dame game, 20th now. And there was a time when it felt like maybe Cody Simon was like going to take his job entirely, and that certainly has not happened.
No.
So he is a starter on a good defense, and I think needs to be in our top 22, right?
I think so. And I think if the time comes when, I don't know when it'll come, but if they pass a team or play a team that's pretty good at throwing the ball, I think you want Steele out there.
Yeah.
With his ability to like cover ground and use his speed. So yeah, no, he's been, I think, about the same as last year. And I don't think the hopes were quite as high for him as they were for Tommy. I think fairly Steele's not taking the step forward you want to see from a guy who's is returning starter in a defense, but I don't think he's any worse. I just think he's I think he's limited a little bit physically by what he can be as like an in the box run stopper, because he's built more like a running back than he is a linebacker.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 21 to you.
I had Steele 21, so we're kind of on the same page. I'll take Donovan Jackson.
Okay.
As he's the only other offensive lineman I had like on my list of 22. I had him 20th. I'm taking him 21st here. There's probably some conversation to be had about who has been their second best offensive lineman. If I think Matthew Jones is number 1, I'd hear an argument for Josh Fryer, although I think his play has dipped a little bit of late. There's been some pass protection breakdowns that I haven't loved. I took Josh Fryer last time. I would not take him this time. Josh Simmons, I think, has played better, to give him credit, as Ryan Day said on Tuesday. I don't disagree with that assessment, but I don't know that his level of play is quite where I want it to be to put him on this list. And I think Donovan Jackson has taken a step forward. I know if you look at the grades, like his last game, he didn't grade out all that well. That's not what I saw when I watched that game and then rewatched it. So that's like where PFF gets a little wonky. I think Donovan has been better as a pass protector, more physical in the run game than he was earlier on in the year, and has seemingly got a little more comfortable playing between two new guys in Josh Simmons and Carson Hinsman.
3rd in the preseason, 22nd, the last pick after Notre Dame game, 21st here. I thought maybe he'd have a chance to go even a little bit higher. I think the idea that he is the second best offensive lineman is correct. And that will bring us to the last pick in this draft. And I want to talk about the guys who have not been picked, and you can help me workshop this pick.
Sure.
Chip Trayanum was 19th last time after scoring the game-winning touchdown against Notre Dame. He's still available. Julian Fleming, who made both of the previous lists, 15th in the preseason, 21st after Notre Dame, still out there. Josh Fryer, 14th in the preseason, 15th last time, is still out there. And then I think maybe like the most interesting guy who's floating around and who has not been picked, and you could make an argument for it, is Carnell Tate.
Oh, I thought you were going to go somewhere else.
Who else am I not mentioning?
I had Xavier Johnson 22nd.
Okay. So Xavier Johnson has not made a list either. And so it's a little bit of a projection here also, right? If we're trying to talk about what guys have done, who do you think has played more snaps, Xavier Johnson or Carnell Tate?
I think Carnell Tate's played more snaps.
Carnell Tate's played 216. Xavier Johnson's played 185. Who do you think has more yards from scrimmage?
Xavier Johnson. I'm looking at it right now.
It's close.
Yeah, he has 4 more.
So Xavier has 142 on the ground and 116 receiving. Carnell Tate has 254 receiving.
Yeah, it's 258 total for Xavier, 254 for Carnell. Carnell averages almost 16 yards per play, with 1 touchdown. Xavier averages about 9 yards per play with no touchdowns.
So the thing about Xavier Johnson is he helped them win the Notre Dame game last year, and he scored a huge touchdown against Georgia in the semifinal. And he's back, and he's reliable, and they use him in a multitude of ways. And he is Marvin Harrison Jr.'s favorite football player. People love freshmen. They've gotten some interesting contributions from freshmen. Headlined by Jermaine Matthews, who's a dog. Headlined by the rebound of Malik Hartford, who helped them last week after the first go-round didn't go as well as he would have hoped. And headlined by Carnell Tate. And so I guess the question is, who has the chance to have the biggest positive impact on the Michigan game? Josh Fryer, Josh Simmons at left tackle, who's never been ranked in any of these, Carson Hinsman, Chip Trainum, Xavier Johnson, or Carnell Tate?
I think it's probably Carnell Tate.
I'm going to take Carnell Tate 20 seconds.
I'm with you there. So he is, if you disregard the 58 yards on the 1 catch that Brandon Innes had, Carnell Tate is second on the team in yards per reception at 15.9. He has 1 touchdown. He's caught basically 70% of the balls thrown his way, which is a pretty good number. His reception percentage is 69.6. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s is 59.6. Carnell has 1 drop. And I do, Berm has trumpeted this a lot the last couple of weeks as we've seen Emeka Egbuka come back, but not quite be himself. They need another threatening weapon on the outside. And I think if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be Carnell Tate.
This does not mean that I think Carnell Tate should take all of Julian Fleming's snaps, because I think Julian Fleming does things to help them as a blocker and that kind of thing. But if we're getting down to this point, I do think that's a smart conversation of there's the offense with the healthy Emeka Egbuka and there's an offense without the healthy Emeka Egbuka, and how that affects what you need out of the other receiver spot. So, Chris Olave against Michigan in 2018 is the example. And I'm not saying that, what did Olave do? 2 touchdowns and a block punt or something in that game?
Yes.
I'm not saying that, but I don't know that but we also might be out over our skis on Dontre Wilson's freshman year of he's good. It's well, it was good, but it didn't, Carnell Tate might not play very much against Michigan either. So I don't know, but I would imagine a lot of people watching this and listening to this are thinking to themselves, I think he might do something that matters against a good opponent.
I think so too. I think there's reason to believe that. It's when they have gotten in the ball, good things have happened. And he's been, I think, pretty trustworthy too in some bigger spots Carnell Tate has. So I could see it. And I think Ryan Day sees it too. He's, whenever we ask Ryan Day about Carnell Tate, he talks about 2018 Chris Olave and 2019 Garrett Wilson. So they're not hiding from it. It's just a matter of how they want to play it against Michigan, I guess, for one, and then whether or not Carnell is actually ready to handle that moment, which I think he would be.
Okay. All right. So let's review again the 22 picks and compare them to what our tech subscribers did, because I did send to the tech subscribers. I just picked 16. I didn't include any offensive linemen. I didn't include Lathan Ransom because I didn't want people to have to have their heads explode. I wanted it to be fun. People said it was really difficult to try to rank this. There are clusters of dudes, 7 through 12 on this list is basically a toss up, so I understand that. But number 1 on our list, on our draft, is Marvin Harrison Jr. He is also number 1 for the Texters. Number 2 for us, JT Tuimoloau, was number 5 for the Texters. 3, Tyleik Williams, number 6 for the Texters. 4, Travion Henderson, number 2 for the Texters.
That's interesting.
5, Jack Sawyer was number 8 for the Texters. 6 for us, Denzel Burke was number 3 for the Texters, barely behind Travion Henderson. Travion Henderson was 4.62. Denzel Burke was 4.64. And again, trying to explain what we're doing here, how good he's been when he's been on the field. I don't think they're wrong to have him that high. Number 7 for us is Jordan Hancock. Jordan Hancock is also 7 for the Texters. Number 8 for us is Cade Stover. He's number 4 for the Texters. People love Cade Stover, right? Number 9 for us is Sonny Styles. He was 12th for the Texters. Again, the Texters are able to sort of like be chill about Sonny in a way that you and I are not able to be that. Number 10, Emeka Ibuka. It's just a hard evaluation. 10 for us, 14th for the Texters. 11th is Josh Proctor for us. He was 10th for the Texters. Number 12 for us is Kyle McCord. And this is just tough, man. Kyle McCord, 9th for the Texters. So again, like here we are. That's around the top 10, the bottom of the top 10 for the team's quarterback. We're kind of in agreement on that. Number 13 for us is Matthew Jones. I just didn't make the Texters try to rate offensive linemen. 14 for us was Davison Igbinosun. Did I put Igbinosun on their list? I didn't. Okay, because I didn't think he'd maybe be this high. Number 15 for us is Tommy Eichenberg. Tommy Eichenberg was 11th for the Texters. Number 16, Lathan Ransom. Number 17, Cody Simon. Number 18, Mike Hall. I did offer Hall to the Texters. He was 15th. Number 19, Ty Hamilton. Number 20, Steel Chambers. I did put him in for the Texters. They had him last among the guys I gave them at 16th. Number 21, Donovan Jackson. Number 22, Carnell Tate. Among the guys that did not get drafted for us, Carson Hinsman, Josh Simmons, Josh Fryer on the offensive line, Julian Fleming at receiver, Chip Trainum, and Xavier Johnson in the backfield. And then we kind of took all the defensive guys you could take. Mm-hmm. Feel good about it? Do we represent what we needed to represent?
Yeah, I do feel good about it. I think one defensive guy who I think it's right to not have him, but maybe we could have talked about was Jermaine Matthews, because he's actually played a fairly large role this year and played well when he has.
He really has. Like it's hard. He's played 177 snaps, which is 15th. But there's Cody Simon is 14th on the team in defensive snaps at 245, and that's kind of like the starters, right? That top 14 where, okay, Simon's the third linebacker, but he's almost a half a starter. Ty Hamilton is 13th. He's in a rotation at defensive tackle. Like there's like 14 guys who are really primary defenders when everybody's healthy. And then Jermaine Matthews is first among like the sub package play when guys are injured guys. So I do think it's fair to not have him, but tip of the cap.
Yeah.
I was just talking about Jermaine Matthews with somebody in the building the other day, and it's like, he's not scared, man. Doesn't flinch, as the person said. Doesn't flinch, right. Which is like, there's nothing that people like to hear more than about a guy who doesn't flinch. All right, that's our ranking. We'll do this one more time when the season's over, and that'll be our final evolution of how we have viewed the best players on this team. For now, though, we're going to get to what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking on Kings of Columbus. Wrapping it up on Kings of Columbus with what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking, what you watching, Landis.
My watching and thinking are intertwined, I think, this week. I like to watch like military movies, which is like weird because I don't have like a military family, and it's never anything I ever considered for myself. I just like kind of like watching movies where stuff blows up and people are shooting guns.
You're a dad now. That's what dads do.
So I watched on Netflix it's called 13 Hours, came out a few years ago. It's like about the guys who were involved in like the fight in Benghazi in whatever year that was. And like the movie was fine. So like that's what like I watched it. It was good. It was what I wanted it to be, as a thing I had on in the background while I was working and stuff was blowing up. I was like, oh, that was cool. And but like John Krasinski's in it.
Oh.
And then also the guy who played Roy in The Office is in it.
Oh, they're both in it?
Yeah, which I found incredibly distracting. And like we've had this conversation about like Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like, and this isn't a cameo. This was like a casting decision to put both those guys in that role. But like, did anyone like stop to think like it would be weird to have Jim and Roy together like side by side in a movie and like not expect people to think only about that the entire time they were watching it? Because I know I did.
Yeah. I think you have to tell the Roy actor, like, listen, man, you killed the audition, but come on.
Yeah.
People are going to be waiting for Pam to show up. And it's like, oh, what happened at the paper company after Jim and Roy both got drafted and had to go to war?
Yeah. And it was like in the beginning of the movie where like all the guys meet, it was like, well, Jim and Roy are in the same room. What's going to happen? And like they have a moment where they do exchange dialogue, and I think that was like purposefully put in there to like kind of ease that tension a little bit, to like get you to stop thinking about it. Because as soon as I saw them both in the room, I was like, are they going to say something to each other? It's like they're not these people, but that's how I view them. Anyway, think more about your casting decisions. That's what I'm watching, and that's what I'm thinking about.
That's very difficult. I mean, people get typecast and they try to break free. John Krasinski is an interesting guy though, because like there's the scene in the 40-year-old version, 40-year-old virgin, where they're watching the Bourne movie on the TV. And Romy Malco was like watching Matt Damon. He was always like, I always thought Matt Damon was kind of a wuss. And like, but look, he's kicking butt. So like, that's what I kind of think of John Krasinski.
Yes.
But then he's Jack Ryan and now he's in a war movie. And it's like, you're trying to break out of Jim, right? A little bit. But
it happens with guys like that. Though. Like it happened with Chris Pratt. It's like, do you have a good jawline and can you grow a beard?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you look good in the t-shirt? Great. We're going to cast you as a military contractor 13 times in your next 15 movies.
No, that's true. Chris Pratt started his career being a big goofball slob who fell into a pit. And then it was like,
yeah. And now he like acts like he's a military veteran because he's played the role so much. Yeah.
So, okay. So I think I've talked about this a little bit. Like one of the things that I found interesting when I took this job, and I currently don't write, but like there's a lot of things that I would like to write. And so in my head, you know, being a full-time show host and podcaster would allow me to have like the inclination and the ability and the time maybe to write more on the side. And so I don't know if is anything ever going to actually happen with that, but you tinker with stuff. And so I do feel comfortable enough, I think, with this audience. I've been working on something that I would like people to watch like one day. So if I read like a segment of that, it's about like, it's about college football. It's like, what am I going to write about other than college football? Like, are you cool with that? It's like a little scene from a thing that I've been working on for a while.
Okay. Yes. I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is a show that I call Stetson Bennett, College Football Lawyer. And I'm actually borrowing it from Michigan's argument for a temporary restraining order. This is a dramatic scene when Stetson Bennett, college football lawyer, comes in to the courtroom and would argue against the Big Ten, fighting for America's team, the Michigan Wolverines. The university itself, and particularly its athletics program, will endure significant and lasting reputational injury if the conference is permitted to impose a sanction in advance of a full and fair investigation. It is impossible to quantify the entirety of the significant harm that will befall the university absent injunctive relief, but there can be no doubt that the university, its students, and the community will suffer greatly. There are so many lawsuits in college football right now. I do think that there might be an appetite for something like this. And I think the idea that he's a national championship quarterback, but now he's a college football lawyer. Do you think there's something there?
Yeah. Like specifically focusing on college football law.
Yeah. Because there's so many lawsuits.
Right. Yeah. And he's
how dare the Pac-12 leave Oregon State? Right? Like that kind of thing too.
Is he, when he's in the courtroom arguing passionately on behalf of his clients, is he in a suit like a normal lawyer, or is he like wearing his full Georgia uniform with the helmet?
No, he's in a suit and also a helmet. And then he stands up and he dramatically removes his helmet before he gives his monologues.
Okay.
But as he's sitting at the table, the judge is like, Mr. Bennett, do you have a rebuttal? Yes, Judge, I do. Stands up, removes helmet, places his helmet on table.
I like the idea too of like, it's a present day courtroom with modern air conditioning, but like he's so stuck in like To Kill a Mockingbird courtroom that he's like fanning himself, even though everyone's perfectly comfortable. Yeah.
He's a seersucker suit.
Yeah.
Right. Injunctive relief. So that's all real from Michigan's temporary restraining order filing. And I promised people that I would read it in my Stetson Bennett voice. So back to the drawing board, maybe. Stetson Bennett.
I think he got something.
College football lawyer.
I thought you were going to break into Harbaugh voice after the Stetson Bennett voice.
It's hard to go back and forth. Yeah. Very different.
two polar opposites there. Yeah.
All right. What are you eating?
I had a very special moment this week. I need a new backpack because mine broke. So I went to Dick's Sporting Goods at the Polaris Mall to try to find one. I couldn't find one. But I guess I never realized this before. Like the Dick's Sporting Goods is connected to the mall. And like when you walk out, you're in the food court. Oh, so I had
language. I love food court.
So I don't think that I've ever had a meal in the Polaris Mall food court, but like I'm a child who grew up going to the mall all the time. It was like one of my favorite things to do was go to the mall and sample what's going on in the food court. But I had and forever had like mall food court Chinese food.
Yeah, baby.
So I meant to log the name of the place. I can't remember. Maybe you know what it's called. I got the steamed rice and I got the bourbon chicken. I got a nice Pepsi Cola to wash it down. Had a little cream cheese ragoon with it, and it was just an incredible meal. It was a nostalgic meal for me. Something that I used to eat quite often that I haven't had probably in like 15 years. And I was just sitting there, really, really enjoying myself. It was great.
It's nice. I'm glad you're rediscovering this before George gets too old, right? So that you can take him to the food court. The death of malls makes me sad.
Yeah,
I think malls are cool. I like going to a store and looking around and trying on my clothes and then getting a pretzel after you buy a shirt.
Yep.
And to just like go on a computer and buy a shirt and then there's no pretzel. Like, what's the point of that?
Yep.
So the mall as an American experience, I'm glad you're still of and you clearly are, but you're still of the generation that like that's in you. But the next generation below you, like I don't think that is in them. And so like, what do you want to do? You want to go to the mall? My daughter in high school will do it every now and then, but like a mall, like mall food court, that's a great date spot, man. Come on.
That was for me, like that was kind of the first place that like my parents allowed us to go without adult supervision, or like they would take us there and then kind of let us like roam in the wild while they hung out wherever. Want to see a movie, like we got to pretend like we were on our own for a few hours. So yeah, malls are very important to me, and I had forgotten that until I was whisked away back to a simpler time while sitting in that Polaris Mall food court eating bourbon chicken.
We picked where we bought our house because it was like equidistant between the Easton Mall and the Polaris Mall in Columbus, like right on the corner, so we could get to either. People laugh. I say I like picked where I live based on chain restaurants and malls, but like I'm not kidding. So
you really nailed it too with some of the things that have been built since you moved.
1,000%.
Yeah, you know,
I crushed it.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so Eaton, I got a Little Caesars pizza for $6.79 for dinner last night, and it is part to me of the frozen pizza conversation. When Little Caesars is so cheap, right? When you're coming in here with your $13 Detroit pizza thing, and you can get them, they make it for you. It's baked in a pizza oven. And it's that cheap. And I know it's not $5 like it used to be a couple years ago. But how do you factor Little Caesars into your frozen pizza conversation? Because there is because you can get some really cheap frozen pizzas. But there's a level to me where it's like, well, if a frozen pizza is going to be this much, is this going to be a better experience than me running to Little Caesars and I happen to have one down the road for me?
I don't know. I don't really consider Little Caesars as often as I used to, but I was very much a proponent of the $5 hot and ready pizza being one of the best values in fast food, I guess. But I probably should consider it among the frozen pizza options when I do that, but I haven't. But I think you're right. The expediency of it kind of puts it on the same level, and I think it probably is better than a lot of frozen pizzas you can get. I don't think it's better than my Motor City pizza. I'd rather pay the extra $6 and eat that than I would Little Caesars. But if I'm like in a pinch and can't get my preferred frozen pizza, I think maybe I'd rather pay the $6.50 or whatever it is to get Little Caesars.
I do think I think it's much better to evaluate Little Caesars compared to frozen pizzas than it is to evaluate Little Caesars compared to like local pizza shops, because it's just the price point, I think, allows you to do that. So, and then you don't have to like store it in your freezer and it takes up a bunch of space. And it's like, you just, when you want it, you go get it. So
how was it? Was it good?
Yeah. And so like, I mean, I ate 4 slices and then, you know, some vegetables and stuff at home for my dinner. And then I'm going to eat 2 slices of it for lunch today. I'm going to eat 2 slices of it for lunch tomorrow. So it's less than $7 and I'm going to get 3 meals out of it.
I love when I got my first journalism job living in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where there's not a whole lot going on there. I lived in a garage and I made $12 an hour. So I ate Little Caesars all the time. Yeah. It was great.
I think the sauce is good. I think the sauce has a little kick to it, you know? A little spicy.
Yeah,
I think
it's not bad.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. What are you thinking?
I already said what I was thinking.
Oh, you combined it.
Yeah.
It was about war.
It was about war and Jim and Roy.
Yeah. All right. So this was a comment that I saw, I think, on one of our YouTube comments, and it's an interesting discussion. So I'm not wearing like the fanciest shirt today, but it does have a collar, right? And somebody was commenting like, why don't I have hoodies and like whatever and just wear those? Why do I wear... Sometimes I wear a sweater on here, like with a collared shirt under the sweater, or like I'll wear like a quarter zip or whatever. And then there was just a brief little tiny discussion of like, well, it's generational sometimes, whatever. But like, this is me going to work. Like, I know I'm in my house, but it's also sort of like, if you went to work, you're like, how many people did you see at work today? And it's like, I saw a couple thousand people at work today. Like, that's how I think. I'm going to see a couple thousand people at work today. So I'm not saying that this is how everybody should think, but that's a 50-year-old person. That's how I think. And in the sports writing profession, I am often, I'm intrigued by what people wear sometimes, because I've talked about this sometimes when I was a young sports writer in the Philadelphia area, and I would go to games and I would just wear a plaid shirt and khaki pants, you know, like
the uniform. Yeah.
The uniform. And there was always this guy there who was like in a suit. Every single game he was in a suit. And it was like, you know, dressed for the job.
Was it Howard Eskin?
No, it was Stephen A. Smith.
Oh.
So it was like, okay, well, you know, but like Colin Cowherd does it, like wears like a nice quarter zip on his show, like we're on TV. That's how I think of it. So I just, I do think it's a little bit generational. What, like, do you think of this as going to work? Like when you are getting ready to be on a podcast and people are going to see you, do you think of it as like, I'm dressing for work or not? And I'm not saying that there is a proper way to dress. I'm more interested in like the thought process that people of different ages have about this.
I think I more think of it as like being presentable, I guess, which like I'm wearing a band t-shirt and a hat. I understand that, but like, I don't want to come on here looking like a schlub all the time, right? And like I funnily enough, like I do always like make a point to like make sure like I have showered before we do this. Yeah. So that is like, I think maybe that is my version of like I'm coming to work. I don't typically put on a collared shirt unless I'm going out into the world, but I more often than not do wear one like when we're going to the Woody, and especially when we're going to games. Even if I'm wearing a quarter zip over it, I still have it on a collared shirt underneath it. But here when I'm at home, I prefer to be more casual.
Yeah. Okay. But also like I own those clothes. And so I wear all my clothes before I wash them. So it's like, if I am going to be like, well, like what other reason would I have to wear like a nice sweater, right? If I'm not going to wear it sometimes on here, I may as well just throw it away.
You wear everything in your wardrobe before you do laundry? Yep. That's wild.
I wash different things together, obviously, but it's like I am very much keeping track of the cycle, because it's like, to me, if you're not in the regular cycle, you know, other than being like a tuxedo or something, then you're out. So you got to have your spot in the cycle, or you're done.
So
otherwise you're just sitting in my closet for no reason.
I was going to ask, do you not have anything in your closet that you don't actively wear other than a suit?
I have like a Randy Moss jersey from 1997 or something.
Oh, you should wear that.
Yeah.
Is it purple?
It is purple.
Yeah, you should definitely wear that.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much. Yeah. If you're going to be in my closet, you got to earn your spot. And like I have a million t-shirts, and sometimes I wear like t-shirts over a long sleeve t-shirt. But if I have like 50 t-shirts, I wear all 50, and I will not recycle enough. Like, because you get worn, you go in the hamper, and then I don't do that t-shirt hamper until all the clean t-shirts are gone.
Oh, yeah, I'm the total opposite. I probably wear 15% of what's in my closet.
Oh, yeah,
and
I
do laundry.
Like
I do laundry every week.
Oh, for real? Oh no,
Yeah.
I was like telling my daughter at college, it's like you have all your clothes in your closet, and then you should do laundry when all the clothes, there's no clothes on hangers and they're all in the hamper. And why would you do laundry before that? Because you have clean options right there. And if you're like, I don't want to wear that, then get rid of it. No?
No, I think it's good life advice. Yeah. I don't you're making me rethink some things.
Yeah. You're in or you're out. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you're watching, what you eating, what you're thinking. We hope to premiere Stetson Bennett, college football lawyer, on Paramount Plus, maybe as a midseason replacement in January. We'll see how that goes. We will be back with the Pick Show on Thursday. All the coverage Saturday from Ohio State, Minnesota. That's before the game. That's after the game. And then guess what? It's Michigan week. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate you guys hanging with us here on the podcast YouTube feed and on our podcast channels. We also would direct you if you dink around on YouTube and you are not subscribed to the Kings of the North YouTube channel, why don't you go subscribe there? You'll catch everything we have coming about Northern football. We do that show once a week. And again, that is expanding. We would love to make you a fan of that show as well. And then also the tech subscribers, you heard the surveys from the tech subscribers. You heard some comments and questions from tech subscribers. If you want to be part of that, it's a 2-week free trial. You can sign up by texting anything to 614-662-4509. You'll get back a link to sign up. You got to put in your credit card, but you don't get charged for the first 2 weeks, and you can just type stop and then you're out if you don't ever want to get charged. So 614-662-4509. All right, Landis, I'll see you on the Pick Show. Mm-hmm. Thanks to our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good and all his hard work on this show every week. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of Columbus.